You know how I made a video before on basically speaking about why, sun gazing doesn't work. I forgot what I titled it, but you can go back if you're interested in looking at it, why sun gazing doesn't work. But I'm going to title this one basically Nothing New Under the Sun. And the reason why is because it kind of has a lot to do with exactly what I was talking about with the other one, and basically how we look at everything else and where we see ourselves first before we do anything. You know what I'm saying? Because, see, if you really consider yourself, let's say, source, God, or, that empowered source of all, wouldn't you have to be in the perfect state of being before you actually do anything? You know what I'm saying? And I'm talking about even to certain situations, because we go up and down in frequency, you know what I'm saying? And it's basically what you decide to engage in, what you decide, not to engage in and whatnot. But nothing new under the sun, all right? And the reason I say new is because if you really look at it, the sun is the ultimate source of light here. But you get information from light, you know what I'm saying? But are you really in the same level as the sun if you haven't really gotten to know the real full abyss, the darkest parts of yourself? You get what I'm saying? You want to be in the same frequency as the sun. You could tap into the sun. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of people tap into things that really, don't matter. And even saying certain words, you never hear. I mean, it's, guys, for example, and I'm guilty of this. I'm not saying not, you know what I mean? They'll look at a girl's ass, you know what I'm saying? And you're basically, you're tapping into their root chakra in a lustful way, you know what I mean? Where energy goes, attention, where energy, attention flows, energy goes, right? So a lot of people say, I want to tap that ass, you know what I'm saying? They'll say, I tap that ass. You tapping in, but you tap in physically too if you do get to tap that ass, you know what I mean? But anyway, that's another different type of title, you know what I mean? But let's talk about basically when you look at it from a energetic standpoint, because I still got a lot of people, you know what I mean? I talk about like foods and how we eat and stuff like that, and people get it wrong thinking that I'm trying to, come out with a debate about foods and whatnot. It's actually an interesting topic to build on for the simple fact that, everything we do requires the perfect state of being. A lot of people say food don't affect me because my mentality is strong, and only if I believe it to mess me up, the food can mess me up. And that's actually very true. All right. But are you really honest with yourself, and have you sat with yourself? Because I've done these experiments where I say I'm God, I'm source, but do I really believe that? Or is it my ego that's actually saying that I am God? You get what I'm saying? That I am the source of all power, the empowered source. Do you really know yourself completely well and deep enough to even admit that to yourself? You know what I'm saying? Or will the ego prevent that from happening? You know what I'm saying? A lot of people still have their consciousness or their mentality still really rooted to this body. You know what I mean? To some extent, you still think you are this body. If I come out and insult you or say something to you, you know what I mean? The majority of people are going to defend themselves and feel offended. You know what I'm saying? And it's not about, letting people walk all over you, but there's also a fine line between, what comes your way and why it even comes your way. You know what I mean? I've realized this through experiments of my own. All right. See, if you want to eat, I eat like a god. Okay. But if I'm eating like a god, I'm also eating with a purpose. You know what I'm saying? See, a god doesn't need to eat physicality. It eats in other ways. You know what I'm saying? But that's also another little topic where it's still coming out from the ego. You get what I'm saying? And like I said, there's a fine line between the stuff that's said and what is actually being done. You get what I'm saying? Being in the same frequency as the sun, right? If you're looking at the sun, right? A lot of people, they say, I'm looking up at the sun. Now, when you're in the same frequency as the sun, you're in the same level as the sun. You're not under the sun. You get what I'm saying? It's so weird to explain, because if you really look at it from a directional standpoint of view, there's really no up, there's no down. It's really basically just a position or a point that you're put in. I could be laying down, right? And I could be looking at the sun at, let's say, high noon, 12 o'clock. I'll be right directly underneath the sun. But in my mentality, all right, that picture is actually flipped vertically. So I'm not really laying down. I'm actually standing but with a floor on my back. It's I don't know if you have ever meditated and felt like even when you're laying in bed, or let's say you're in a position, but then yet you try to pretend you're in a different position in your bed. It's a really trippy kind of feel when you do that. But I've actually managed to come out of body doing that because I was able to picture myself in a different position that I was actually aware that I was actually in. All right. I hope I explained that well. But I do that while I sun gaze as well. And the more you practice this, you know what I'm saying? It's because repetition is how you kind of convince yourself, your mind, it basically gets programmed into your subconscious. Okay. But you got to get this information from the sun. You got to be in tune and really in the same frequency as the sun. But it all comes from starting from how deep you went into your darkest space and try to, shed light on that. Because you see, if the sun is that bright, right, there has to be, it's like the brighter the light, the darker the shadow for that light to be casted out, right? So if you're going to be in that same frequency, you would have to start from that real darkest aspect of yourself, which is why shadow work is actually important. I've actually been doing certain techniques, from the Eternal Black Flame, Ravana Noon, and it's helped out significantly as far as bringing things to the surface and really getting, but man, things become pretty difficult, and those are things that you have to just go through. But they are extremely important to really face yourself first. You know what I'm saying? And, the more I've actually done that, the more I realize that it is that what I know, I really don't know shit. You know what I'm saying? You're always learning, but sometimes you have to unlearn what you know to really propel yourself forward. You get what I'm saying? But all I could tell you is this, when it comes down to the food thing, if you're sick, for example, let's say your immune system is low, you're not going to go work out in the gym. You're not going to go exercise. Why? Because you're going to get weaker and you're going to get sicker because your immune system is weak and you have no defenses. Okay? It's the same thing. If you're in a low frequency or a low state of being and you think you're God and you go eat these foods, they're going to affect you because your mental state is not there. Okay? If you're going into any of this with fear, it's going to fuck you up. And I'll tell you from experience, it will fuck you up. All right? So these little things are important to know because it's basically just being honest with yourself. You don't have to try to convince anybody outside. It's basically just being as honest with yourself as possible. Because I'm not talking about food to people basically in the sense of, food is going to fuck you up because it's got all these different ingredients. And let me tell you something. First of all, I look at everything from a microbial level because you're just full of bacteria. And notice how kids, when they're little, when they play in the yard or whatnot, they're eating dirt. Those kids are healthier than the kids that are always kept clean. And you know what I mean? Because they're not introduced to these bacteria in their body. The more they're introduced to these bacteria, the stronger their immune system becomes, right? So you're able to eat everything. Because what happens when I've done it, I've ate super clean. And then the moment I do eat something, I get sick. When I had a rock hard stomach, I could eat whatever the hell I wanted. You get what I'm saying? But then it comes to a point where if you get to a point where you start to be too clean, now food's going to start to affect you when you do eat anything. Because now you're going to have a delicate stomach, a delicate system. You know what I'm saying? And that's one thing I've noticed. I went back to eating what I need to eat, but I don't overeat. I eat once a day. You know what I'm saying? And if I eat that once a day, it's going to be a good meal. I'm going to eat like a god. And I'm going to program the food because that's what's going in me as information. Okay? My system, my immune system, my mentality, I feel like it's in a good place. So I'm able to eat these type of things and they're not going to affect me. See, I'm talking about that from an energetic standpoint of view. Now, food and drug is in the same category. See, food now is not really food. Because if you look at it, I'm growing kefir, I'm growing these bacteria, right? But you know that they're actually so detailed. You cannot even use chlorinated water because you'll kill the beneficial bacteria. So you will not be able to make kefir, right? The temperature has to be right. The pH has to be right for them to flourish, right? If not, then what happens? It gets the bad bacteria, mold or whatnot. It starts to ferment in the wrong way or whatnot. The whole thing about this is that everything's in balance. You know what I'm saying? You still need the bad stuff in your system, but you still have to have it you have to have it under control to some extent. You can't let it get out of control. You get what I mean? It's the system management. You know what I mean? And then you have to know what state of being you're in. That's why people drink. Like when they're depressed, what happens when people drink alcohol and they're depressed? People want to drink alcohol when they're depressed. And that what happens? Their feeling gets worse. It gets amplified. What happens when women get their heart broken? They want to binge eat. They want to eat. You know what I mean? They want to eat stuff that's of a lower vibration because that's the vibrational match to it. Now, same thing with these viruses and coronavirus. All these things that are coming out. All right, all these things that are coming out it's basically a frequency. Okay, that's how I look at all these diseases. It's a frequency, and if you're of a frequency match, then that's how it's going to affect you. Because fear is a low frequency. Fear is a useful tool that you can use. But if it's not used properly, it can attract you to the low vibrational frequencies such as diseases. All right. And if your body is vibrating high because you're putting in high vibrational things, it's not going to affect you. You see, food is information. All right. It's a deity. Food, diet is deity. Okay. But the same way when you listen to information, if you're not conscious and aware, what happens? Certain information may fuck you up. All right. It may program you. It may do things to you. That's why if certain things are, let's say, subliminal messages, why do you think conscious people put out videos? Oh, you didn't catch that? Subliminal messaging, this, and they start pointing that out. So it can't affect them because they're conscious and aware of the subliminal messaging, right? So it's the same way. If you're not conscious and aware and you're listening to information, it could program you in the wrong way. All right. The food, for example, it's got drugs in it. All right. It's got certain drugs in it. All right. MK Ultra. If you look at what the projects were from even back then in the 60s, they were using LSD on military soldiers. They were using it on test subjects. OK, they were using drugs. So there's drugs in certain things such as like, you know, animal meat and stuff like that, because you're not hunting the animal meat yourself. You get what I'm saying? But it's looking at it from an elemental point of view. Look at the air element. The air element gets manipulated with these chemtrails, whatnot. And it's not to feed into conspiracy theories. It's just basically to be aware of it. You get what I'm saying? But you see, you have to be very strong-minded. And the way you strengthen that mentality is through meditation. Because when you strengthen your mentality, you're strengthening your focus muscle. And when your mind is sharp, okay, you can glide easier. You get what I'm saying? So you got to understand there's really no friction. All right? You got to become aerodynamic. So if you're letting these things affect you mentally, is because you're in a bad state of being. See, I don't blame anything outside of me fucking me up. It's because I'm actually deciding to eat that, knowing that I should not be entertaining it, knowing because I'm in a low state of being. You get what I'm saying? So if I'm sick, right? When you work out in the gym, you get stronger and it's good for you, right? It's good for your heart. It's good for your muscles. It's good for your body. But what's the benefit of having your body healthy? You're not your body, but the benefits of having your body healthy is that you're in a high vibration. And when you're vibrating high and your frequency's high, okay, you can get a lot more out of spirituality, which is what you are. You get what I'm saying? If your car is broken down and you're going on a journey, right? And you're going on a road trip, you're going on a journey, the same way you're on this journey here on this planet. If you don't have your car, your tires aligned right, if you don't have your oil change, your filters clean, what happens? Your car might break down and it's not going to even run right. So you might have to go on that journey stressed out with the fear of getting getting stranded or broken down on the side of the road. Okay? So it's the same way. Like here, you want to be able to, walk light, walk happy. You know what I mean? Like you're vibrating high. You hear what I'm saying? You're in a good state of being. Because think about this. If the food is low vibrational, you're putting in low vibrational energy and you're bringing yourself to that level. But if you're in a high state of being and you take that low vibrational food, okay, there is energy transmutation that you could do, right? Because you could program food. That's where the whole concept of prayer came in, right? But let's say, for example, you're just eating because you're trying to satisfy an addiction or satisfy a hunger that it may not even be a hunger. You get what I'm saying? But that comes down to really being in tune with your body. You really have to know if there's things influencing that sensation in your stomach. Because first of all, true hunger comes from your throat. You know what I'm saying? Notice how when you're young, You can eat a lot, but kids are always happy. Nothing bothers them. They're always high vibrational, right? But they eat a lot because their growth hormone is high. Their endocrine system is functioning on all levels. But notice that that's even manipulated from the start of their life through vaccines, right? Through chemicals. And that's what's in food, chemicals. So it's not the food that's bad, it's the chemicals in the food. That's the things to be aware of. And when we get older, our endocrine system starts to slow down. Our growth hormone starts to slow down. Why do you think kids, when they eat or when they can eat whatever they want and they don't get fat as quick as an adult does? Because their growth hormone is a lot more active, right? They're growing, right? We stop growing as adults. So we should be eating less and our growth hormone is lower. Why do you think when you fast, your GH, which is your growth hormone, goes up by 2,000%? Because your insulin, and I look at the word insole, like the insoles of your foot or the soles of your feet, connect to the earth, insulin, right? When you constantly spiking that insole in, you mess up the endocrine system. And when a guy's testosterone is messed up, how is a guy's mood? And isn't the mood connected to the frequency? You get what I mean? So that's why I bring up topics of food, and that's why I bring these things up. And if you're eating that one meal a day, let's say, that means you're running on an efficient body. If you feel like you got to eat all the time, that's inefficiency. And that means that you're just feeding the body and trying to satisfy the body, knowing that that's not what it even is. That's basically you feeding into a program of having to keep consuming. And that's corrupted information going inside of you. The same way when you would say you are what you eat, right? If I'm going to look and sun gaze, I'm eating the sun, because you don't just eat with your mouth. You eat, when you look at things, you're receiving. When you smell things, you're receiving. When you touch things, you're receiving. When you listen to people, you're receiving. You're eating them. You get what I'm saying? So that's why if I'm going to look at the sun, I am the sun. And what is the representation of the sun that everybody wants? Is basically Jesus or Ra or whatever the hell you want to believe it is. You know, I had a talk with a religious person, and basically they kept telling me about, and here's the thing, I love lately talking to religious people, but I'm having good conversations with them. You know what I'm saying? They talk about how they pray and whatnot. And you know what? I told this one lady, and she looked at me like, she was like, wow, man, that's fucking interesting. Because I told them, like, how come, you know, like priests will tell you to pray to a God, right? But how about you do this? Try this out. And I told her to do it, and she came back and said, wow, this was amazing. You know what I'm saying? But it's just basically having her meditate using her imagination. I told her, why don't you look at that Jesus figure that you have, right? Let's say. And that, like, whatever the image of Jesus or your God is. And instead of praying to it, why don't you just merge that energy to you? Bring it to you. You know what I'm saying? You ever hear God works through people? You know, God works in mysterious ways. Well, have God work through your vessel. This is your house. I told her, you open the doors to Jesus to let him in. Because the thing is that even religion, they have you thinking God is far away. She told me, and this is what kind of stimulated me to talk to her. She said, I hope he's hearing my prayers. Okay? Because everything seems so far-fetched. I told her, if you're standing on top of a mountain and you're looking at the vast scenery and it looks so far away, all you have to do is close your eyes and you just took all that in. You took it all in. So what you do is you take your image of Jesus with your eyes closed and you take that light and merge it to you and let it just work through you. You know what I'm saying? Let it purify you and let that energy be you. And then when you come out of that, instead of praying to God saying, you know, because I told her, I was like, have you ever watched any financial gurus? Have you ever watched any of those videos? They tell you the power of the now. In the now moment, right? What you do is you always say everything in the now. I am rich. I have this. I have that. You don't say I will or I pray for this, because then you're in that now moment using that externally, saying that I don't have it. You're in the state of being that I don't have. So the moment I told her, before you pray, merge that energy to you. You say I am Jesus now because he is in me. Or I am God because he is in me. And now when I pray, I say this is done. And you have to know with conviction that it is done, because you have so much faith and belief in that God or that Jesus that you should be able to accomplish anything right now, because you just merged with that energy. That's not blasphemy. You let God into your house. Okay? Don't they say in church, your body is your temple? So let God into your temple. that's the easiest way for God to answer your prayers before anybody else. Because the reason everybody else is feeling like their prayers don't get answered is because they all praying outside to an energy, when all you got to do is just close your eyes and let that energy in your house. Now you physically have a contact with that being, spiritually rather. You know what I'm saying? With that entity, that deity, whatever it is that you believe in. You get what I mean? And it's just merging the energy together. You are what you eat. Right? So if I'm dealing with Jesus or God or whatever, then that I mean, in my opinion, okay, that deity or that entity was created by man. Okay? This is why it's important to go into your own darkness. And then you cast your own lights. You get what I'm saying? Because nothing new under the sun. You're out here getting information, light codes from the sun, right? But that's the light here in the physical realm. Can you get information if you tap into your inner self? Because there's the black sun also. The darker you are, the more of a light you shine. And everybody out here is a star. Why do you think people in Hollywood are superstars? People know them. They have influence. They have power. Why? Because they have popularity. They have money, whatever it may be, but they're shining bright. They're in a position of power. You can be in that position of power as well. And that all comes down to knowing yourself. And I've came down to so many fucking realizations here, even to the people that I'm mingling with, because you are who you hang out with. You are what you always see this. You hear what I'm saying? You see this everywhere. So it's basically the same way. When it comes to food, you could program the low vibrational food to your liking. You know what I'm saying? You could program it to your liking. But there has to be a level of respect for what you're doing to yourself and what you're actually putting into your vessel. Knowing that if it's a drug, you got to know. Because, look, if I could drink alcohol and I'm going to get drunk, right? But what happens if I overdrink? I'm going to black out, right? Now I lost total control. So when you overeat, what do you think happens? All right? Because I've ate to the point where I literally feel the next day like I have a hangover as if I drank. Why? Because I purified my body. I cleaned my body out. But then the moment I started to eat that way, what happened was, first of all, the stomach is the size of your fist. Your stomach shrinks when you don't eat as much. And then what happens when you expand it? You start creating ammonias and alcohols and all that type of shit that goes into your bloodstream. And not only that, but mixed in with such drugs in there like antibiotics and steroids and all that type of shit, that shit will fuck your mentality up. But if you're not in the perfect state of being, you got to make sure your mind is strong, and then you could take these things in. Because you could become the same way I could get tolerant to alcohol, right? There's people who can't drink alcohol because they don't drink a lot. So I started to notice how when I cleaned my body out, how the food started affecting me more. But not the, let's say the meats or anything like that. It's just basically the amount that I actually eat, right? That's what starts fucking me up. And it kind of slows you down. That's all it is. It slows you down a little bit. My dreams weren't as lucid, right? But first, I mean, you gotta be happy. You gotta be vibrating high, and you gotta look at that food, whatever the food may be, and you say, man, yo, this food right here, this right here is gonna give me superpowers, right? But you gotta believe that, and you gotta program it. Use your hands. This is where this reflexology thing. All your organs are connected to certain parts of your hand. And if you start using your hands, all right, you're connecting all your organs, all your chakras, and you start programming your food that way. But I'll make another part just in case that wasn't clear. And, like, share, and subscribe, and we'll talk soon.